guys, good morning, happy Friday. Sorry for the late start. It was like a wake up late morning, and then it was a run morning. So, oh dear. So yeah, how are y'all? Welcome back to Reaper Pro-Tips. It's Casual Friday. My intro spiel is all over the place. No Space Marines. Barbarian, this is Reaper. You're on Reaper's channel. You're in a whole different world. We're doing Chibi. We're finishing up probably our Chibi vampire, Monique. Let me get her in focus. But yeah, I mean, I do paint Space Marines. I paint Games Workshop. I haven't painted an actual Space Marine in a while because I actually prefer Xenos, but I'm a Xenos girl. But yeah, this is Reaper, so we paint Reaper here. I sometimes do GW for my own thing. It's not a squirrel day today. Squirrel. Because I slept late, which means I actually slept well. But I was running. I was certainly running to get ready for the stream. Hey, Hyper Bunny. Thank you for the resub on Prime. I'm very impressed. 19 months. Dang. I am still waking up. So here, let's do the real spiel. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied, I don't know, brains, everybody else. Maybe they have my brain. But, Bean Mitch, thank you for the resub. 13 months, lucky unnumber. All right, let's see here. Although I don't believe in that, really. I'm not a numerology person. Although I do have a lucky number myself, so, you know. A little bit of superstition never really hurt anybody, as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, an abundance of it can. Alright, let me see here. We're an amendment. All we have left is finishing up her gold. Like, she's so close to done. Like, look at this. This is an almost finished model. Dang, I might even have to, like, start talking about the new one. Yeah, for afternoon for East Coasters. Hey, Arrowwiz. Yeah. Good deal. Alright, cool. NMM's colors. Let's see here. We're doing pretty standard NMMs on her. My very, very yellow mixture. Non-metallic metal. Yeah. I didn't want to go red with her because she already has red armor, so you don't want to go with reddish NMM on red armor. Usually you want more contrast. Sweet. Oh, Val, thanks for the resub. 11 months, you are almost to your sub anniversary. Let's get our colors laid out here. You guys remember how I'm doing non-metallic metal gold, right? Oh, I opened up my present yesterday for my birthday. I decided to open it early because for my actual birthday, David's parents are going to be here. So it's going to be a little bit distracting. There. So I decided to open my present early, which is Kirill's book. And just from reading the intro, I would say that he's pretty much written the book I'd like to write. Like, it's about painting. It's not about Kirill. Like, not that it's bad to have books that are about the artist, and, you know, that's cool and all, but I like a paint book that says that he's setting out to explain the whys, because, and this just, like, confirms my bias that Kirill and I, like, paint a lot alike, and we even explain things a lot alike. So it makes me happy, because now I have a book all about why. And it's a huge book about the why of mini painting. And I'm looking forward to breaking it open, because I'm sure there'll be stuff in there that he does differently than me. And he'll explain some things in a way that'll, like, make me go, ooh, that's a great way to describe that, you know. So I'm really excited. Yeah, pure white, always. With non-metallic metal, always pure white. Always pure white. Unless there's a very good reason not to. Like, if your light source is green, then you will go up to a greenish version of pure white. You still go near to white, though. You have to have that. You have to have the contrast. It will not look shiny unless you go up. And I'm going to add a drop of lantern yellow to each of these because I like my gold to be a bit more yellow. Some people don't, and that's a personal preference thing. There is no standard. Where did my pokey thing go? Pokey thing. Pokey thing. There it is. Hiding under a sticky note. There is no standard color for NMM gold. There is only everybody's personal recipe. Like, the NMM Gold Triad is a very good place to go if you have no idea what you want in your gold. Or any other, like, any of your favorite painters, if they have a recipe. You know, if you like that recipe, sure, go for it. But everybody does it different, and a lot of people do it different depending on the model. Still War Shadow. Like, you still need... Okay, understand, guys, that shiny and reflective are the two things you want in NMM. And the only way to achieve shiny is to contrast pure white, or close to it, with dark. It's the only way. That's what, visually, that's what a shiny object is doing. To indicate to you that it is shiny. Like... What do you have here? You have a pure white and a dark right next to it. It is this particular type of placement that makes metal shiny. Like the dark and the light together on the same surface is an indicator to our eyes. In the placement, the right placement also. Yeah, it's a very hefty book, for sure, Twisted Oma. I'm interested. Color isn't his thing like it's my thing. It may be the only thing that... It makes me think that I should just write a miniature painting book about color. Rather than... Because if Kirill's book is truly the book that I've always wanted to write, and I really can't improve on it, we'll see, I haven't read it yet. Then I would say probably if I did a book, it'd be more about color and miniature painting, which could be very interesting by itself. But yeah, even with a white bridal gown, you have your metal surfaces still need to go up to white. Absolutely they do. Yeah, I'm thinking it wouldn't be a bad product placement, Durham, just because that seems to be, like, what people struggle with. Like, just from the questions I get, right? It's the single class that everybody always asks for at ReaperCon. Like, there's other classes that get requested, you know, year after year, but it's a lot of times I get the feeling that people are just like, oh yeah, this is a good topic, but when it comes down to, like, what could you use, they're like, color theory, more color theory. So, and you know what? That's a lot more doable than doing a big mini painting book like Kirill did with AK. Doing a book on color theory that's smaller is a much more attainable goal. And specifically color theory for miniature painting, right? Because it has a lot of, I mean, you're doing a lot of the same stuff. You could even use, like, canvas works as an example. You know, there's, obviously color theory is kind of color theory, but you do some things different on miniatures because you're working on such small surfaces. I do like to do a mix of these two colors too, though I don't often use it, weirdly. I'll often wet blend it on the model. But a little bit of the rich leather to make this more of a kind of a caramel color. I like that mid-transition stage. It makes it look like ochre without actually being ochre. Like, the more I add this, the more it will actually become the color of Palomino gold. So this is an example of how you can get to similar color with totally different pigments, because this is very close to Palomino gold right now. But it's a mixture of these two colors. And it doesn't have the coverage of Palomino. That's one thing it's missing out on. But I want to blend, so sometimes I don't want coverage. I wish painters would talk more about that. Because there's that recurring myth that coverage is king, and I don't agree with that. Coverage is useful in its place, just like transparency is useful in its place. And personally, I tend to want transparency more than I want coverage. And that's why tube paints are designed the way they are, is that artists understand that if I want opacity, I just add white and do a bit of underpainting. Or do a bit of underpainting. But in miniature painting, we I don't know. I sometimes think it's dumbed down for you guys too much. Like, it's not like mixing is presented as scary, and if mixing was presented as super easy and they gave you tools to learn it, then, you know, it'd be a lot more accessible, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, he did great job with photography. He or his assistants. Twistoma agreed. Oh, it's the Kirill book. It's the AK mini painting fact. Wait, I have it. I can put it up on my screen. 1 second. Let me grab it. Grabbing it. 1 second. It's my birthday present. My birthday present, Pendrake. So this is the one. Kirill's name is down at the bottom. I have absolutely no problem promoting Kirill on our stream because he uses a crap ton of Master Series and always endorses it. And considering that in his introduction, he talks about the necessity of having high quality paints for figure painting, and then he endorses Master Series. So yeah. Well, we're doing Kirill. Well, oops, that was I mean. We're talking about this awesome painter guy who also happens to love Master Series. Yeah, Quindy. Nice slip, huh? I mean, he's handsome and all, but I don't go for Russian. And he's got a wife. I love his wife's name. She has one of the best Russian names. But yeah. So this is a lovely book, and it's huge. As you can see, it is very thick. It is it's a pricey volume, but at least you get your money's worth. Hey, I mean, I wasn't endorsing, just a slight endorsement of my work. One of the top painters, possibly the top painter of the world, likes my paint. Yeah, enough said, really. But, like, you know, the photography on this stuff, like that guy up on the top, you know, there's just, it's full of luscious paint jobs. It's like, it's enough to make you drool, like, as you were just saying, you have to put a coating on the pages to keep from drooling all over everything. But yeah, and it's pretty much Kirill's book of how the heck you get these results. And in fact, I can see, yes. Yeah, that's why I was just saying Letonics. Or Leighton. I was saying I have no problem promoting this book on this stream or on a Reaper stream in general because Kirill uses our paint and promotes it all the time. Like, probably the primary paint line he uses is Master Series. So, please don't. Like, I don't want Kirill to get the wrong idea. I mean, I'm a fan, yeah, but not in that way. But yes. So, anyway, what am I doing? I am doing NMM Gold and talking about, like, Kirill's book. So what I may do at some point in the future is do a little breakdown on stream of parts of Kirill's books. Like, maybe I'll do it on my own stream. Because he's going to go through a lot of stuff that you guys are probably going to look at and go, oh my God, like, how do I even start? You know, because he's a really, really high-end painter. But, you know, so maybe we'll do a demystifying Kirill's book, little series of things. Because I'm sure that he probably teaches it really well, but I could see just looking at some of, like, the cloth techniques, how you guys would be like, ee! Or a lot of you may be like, ee! Yeah, to really get advantages, and I'm interested to see if he breaks it down that far, because that's another thing that I could put in a painting book that I like to talk about that a lot of other painters just really don't. Grey Wolf is paint consistency, brush loading and unloading, brush size versus paint consistency, types of palette with different paint consistencies, you know, different brands and their paint consistency and how it affects the paint. All of this is stuff that I talk about exhaustively on stream that I could put into a book. And I don't know if Kirill breaks it down that much. So let's see. Do I want tiny brush today? I think I'm going to do tiny brush. But yeah, to do any of his, like, okay, so Kirill's all about textures. And to do any of that, Grey Wolf, you have to have your paint consistency down. So paint consistency and brush control. Those are your holy grails of mini painting. If you get those two things, then you are able to do anything you want. Well, Liquid Nebula, I've been asked for a painting book for like 20 years or more. Like, people have told me I should write one for 20 years or more. Now all the great painters of the world are writing their painting books. And so my task that I see is to see what I could bring to that lexicon, what I could bring to that canon that is different and very much me. So that's why I was talking about, like, you know, the nuts and bolts paint consistency stuff and the color theory stuff. Yeah, I don't know. The thing that small brushes are not very good for is spot wet blending. And I went very different with my colors on this one, so I may need to swap up to my Raphael. Yeah, I think I do. Sometimes you reach for something and you're just like... Flow's better than Vallejo because we have flow improver in it and because it is a more fluid base and less thick. Yeah, it's just... I mean, it's just bias. People like what they like. Like, they have brand loyalty. So, in order to change somebody's mind on brand loyalty, the best thing you can do is to just paint awesome stuff with Reaper paint and to, you know, talk about why you like the paint. You can't ever just be I love Reaper. You know, Reaper's awesome. Like, that doesn't make people really consider it. Then they just think like, oh, well, that person is just a Reaper fangirl or fanboy. But it's like, I love Reaper because I could do this awesome blending effect because they thin so much easier and, you know, I have control of the paint. You know, whatever. I think I do need a dark, however. Remember, it's light and dark together. So I think I was using, what was I using for dark? Russet brown and a little bit of brown liner. Where is my russet brown? I was just using it the other day. And then it ran away and hid behind something else. Oh, come on, russet brown. Oh, there you are. Well, no. I mean, a lot of people want to understand. It's just that mini painters aren't necessarily talking to them about that. I mean, Kirill's right. He even says it in his book. He's like, the thing that people don't talk about is the why. And he is all into the why, as am I. Like, if I can't tell you why something works in addition to you should do this, then you should always be suspicious. Like, because then it may or may not work for you. But if I can tell you why it works and the key to making it work, then I've taught you to fish and I don't have to hand you the fish anymore. Sometimes you have to hear it in a few different ways and see it demonstrated in many ways before it clicks. That's just, you know, even better if you practice after you watch a stream. But again, that just is your goals, right? And Kirill talks about that too. Like, all in his introduction, he's just like, you know, some people just paint for relaxation and some people paint, you know, just for a good tabletop standard. And some people want to go into the fine art aspect. Yeah, just too much paint on your brush then, Grey Wolf. If control issues with thinned paint, always unload your brush more. And dry brushing is not a necessary technique. Also, if you're having trouble with dry brushing, it's probably the same problem. You're not unloading your brush enough. Yes, that's exactly it, Grey Wolf. When you load your brush, you must unload it. When you use thin paint, I would never put this on the model. I would never even put that on the model. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're to the point where I might try it on the model and see. Yeah, now I have control. So, unload your brush. And you saw how little paint I had on my brush there. Like, that's another thing. When you're using thinned paint, get as little brush as you can, a little paint as you can on it. Go watch. Actually, Grey Wolf, you need to go watch my thinning MSP paints video if you haven't. Have you watched it? If you have watched it, you need to rewatch it. Because that would have saved you. And it's free, and it's up on Reaper's YouTube, and I have a free PDF for it on my Patreon. And Quindy will come in with the link. So I have faith. I have faith in Quindy. So thinning MSP paint, which is all about how much to thin your paint for various stuff. I also, if you are on my Patreon, I did a video specifically on unloading your brush, where I showed different brush sizes and how many dabs on the side of the palette it takes for me to unload each one. So patreon.com/paintingbig. If you are on my Patreon and you have not watched the unloading your brush video, it is probably the single most useful video I have ever done. Other than thinning MSP paints. Go and watch it. It will make you think about unloading your brush. You may not right now think about it very much. Usually that's the problem. And it's totally fixable. You just, yeah. You only want coverage on the base coat. That's why I think that they dumb it down too much for people, Shadow Raven. Exactly that mindset. Where it's like, but I need coverage. Why do you need coverage? Ask yourself why. If it's that I'm base coating or I'm wet blending over a primer, then yes, absolutely, you need coverage. If it's because I need to create this texture and my paint is too thin, I'm not seeing anything when I lay down the paint, then absolutely, you need more coverage. But if you need more coverage just because it's gotten into your brain that coverage is king, then you need to stop and assess. There must be a reason. Coverage is not king. Coverage is an asset in some techniques and not an asset in others. Yeah, because right now if I have coverage, I just see brush strokes. So, like, you know, the little brush stroke I just put in there is because my paint isn't thin enough, because it's not transparent enough. And if you really can't get over it, Shadow Raven, if you really cannot get out of the whole I want coverage, then what you need to do is just mix a lot of transition colors. You can use those thicker and still get good blends. It's just a different style of painting. I think it's, well, it's a different kind of work. It's not necessarily more work. It's different focus. So right here, I want a shadow. I want my little bit of light there at the edge, but I also still need pure white because otherwise this part, this little panel of the shield will not look shiny. That's where you need the pure white. Oh, I went too far down. But it's not hard. I mean, it's not hard to unlearn mini painting. I mean, if it's a habit, then you're going to have to concentrate on breaking it. But once you try something and it works really well, I find that it's very easy to toss your old way of doing things and realign with your new way of doing things. A little bit of pure white, I think also here because this is pointed up. And I want to kind of bring that down. I'm just doctoring. So this is a curved surface on the shield here. And essentially on the upper surface, the uppermost surface, you're going to get a highlight. You're also going to get a highlight probably because the shield is tilted this way. So technically the uppermost part is here. And you'll also see there's a highlight right there on the other side of that intersection. So that is another reason to put a highlight on the top there. You normally wouldn't come up to white on this bottom part, but because it's all facing upward, you absolutely can. I just wouldn't make it quite as strong as, say, your highlight up here. Oh. Well, if you want to see results now, take up wet blending. It's much faster. it takes learning the technique. Like, I think it is a more difficult technique to get reliable results out of. Laszlo, you guys may remember Laszlo, who used to teach at ReaperCon. He switched out to 2D art, so he hasn't taught at miniatures for a while. But Laszlo started out wet blending everything on all of his miniatures, and it would take him forever. It wasn't fast for him. But he was wet blending absolutely everything, trying to get really good blends. And so it can take time. Then when you get it to the point where, and even now I'm layering at this point, I'm not actually wet blending to get this blend because it's a big, broad blend and I want it to be really good, since people are going to look at this part and that part. So I am actually layering at this point, but I set it up with a wet blend, and wet blending is very fast. But I find it is a more difficult technique to master, which is why I say that it's not a necessary technique. It's just a good thing to have in your toolbox. And if you have a flair for it, go for it. Because some people seem to get it right away. Like, they just get wet blending and they never go back. Marika's like that. That's John Bono, Durham. My friend John, who I was housemates with, actually, for a long time. John married Farah, who is into rescue kittens, and I think he lost his time to paint because because of rescue kittens, and so he has committed to the kitten side of the force. He does not, because he feels like he hasn't done anything in too long, Durham. He's like, since the rescue kittens took over their lives, like an endless succession of rescue kittens, he hasn't done much painting, so he feels like he's not up on everything now, and he really feels like he can't teach as well. So that's fair. When people fall out of the hobby, sometimes, you don't need to get back in. Yeah. Yeah, he did. That's just it. John's a good teacher. He's very entertaining, and he's very exhaustive. And one of these days, maybe he'll get back into the hobby. And there we go. I needed some brown liner mixed up. But yeah, so I just want a little bit of extra dark because as I get under this edge here, I need to put that dark in. I don't go quite as dark on the upper here because, again, it's facing upward. You usually, when you have upward facing surfaces with NMM, you shouldn't quite take your shadows as dark. You still need to go moderately dark to get the right effect, or at least to go moderately dark on surfaces nearby to get the effect. This is a complex area, so because it's got lots of different forms. Not as bad as the Templar that I've been working on. Nothing is as bad as the Templar in trying to do fancy NMM. But I am going to put a dark shadow on these edges, these inner edges. I've been fanboyed and fangirled quite a bit over the years. So, yeah, it's better for everybody if you keep the fangirl fanboy in check. I mean, people are just people. I'm just a people. I have faults and flaws and quirks and idiosyncrasies and oh my gosh. But I have been, fanboyed and fangirled. So, I can deal with it if you forget yourself and you do it. But I am just a person. The only thing that makes me good at mini painting is the fact that I really love to microanalyze stuff. And I also have drive, as David pointed out the other day. I have a lot of drive to become very good at the things I do. The things I'm interested in. So again, when you've got overlapping plates or areas like this, it's a very simple progression from your highlight to your shadow, up to another highlight, to another shadow, up to another highlight, to another shadow, up to another highlight. It's just little steps. So you're kind of treating each area individually. But these all have a very similar shape. They're all like little scalloped surfaces. So painting them similarly makes sense. And we like to make sense. Making sense is good. It can come back. I mean, I've had plenty of times where I just kind of lose it on something, and it can be a sign that, like, you just need to move on to a different thing for a while. Depending on your personality. If you're one of those people who just bobs back and forth between different hobbies, you're well aware of this. That it's easy to lose excitement for something for a while, and then one day you just wander over and pick up something that you used to work on and go, oh, I was really into this. Oh, I really feel like doing this now. So. And, you know, other stuff going on in your life can certainly kill your drive to, you know, do creative things. Best thing you can do is just not kick yourself for it. Just like kind of maybe go back to using mini painting just for relaxation. Probably the best thing you can do if you're kind of in a funk. And not worrying about progression or... When I get stressed out about painting, or kind of feel like I'm losing my, like, urge to do it, usually it's because I've just loaded too much onto myself and I need to step back and just use it for relaxing again. Mini monster paints, it really depends on the competition. And it can even depend on the actual year of the competition. For example, in the old days, Games Workshop for Golden Demons preferred metallic paint. They switched over eventually to awarding demons to things that were painted with NMM, but they still like TMM, right? So they do both. And most competitions, it's going to be the same. The question is, how high quality is your NMM compared to your TMM? Like, which are you better at? When it comes down to it, you should play to your strengths in a competition, unless you are specifically doing that competition in order to push yourself in a new technique. Like if you do non-metallic metal a lot, but you really want to try to do high quality TMM, then yeah, do it. For photography, like for a competition that's like Crystal Brush or online, I would say NMM wins because NMM photographs better. It's very hard to make your metallics look good on camera. As good as they look in person, even really good metallics. So it does, just like I said, Dogfather, it depends on, like with the Games Workshop thing, I had a friend who did a really, really high level job on a model, but used NMM back in the days when a lot of people were doing NMM, but Games Workshop kind of turned their noses up at it. And she just didn't get anything. Like her model was easily in the top 3. They ignored it because it had NMM. She heard the judges talking later, and it was because it had NMM. So we don't see that typically in our community these days. It may be a bias that you'll encounter in smaller competitions. It is very likely to be a bias that you may encounter in historical competitions, like if you go to Atlanta, Tulsa, or the Chicago show, which are, they allow science fiction and fantasy, like they have category for science fiction and fantasy, but a lot of the judges are old school historical. So you may run into that bias in a place like that. So think about that, because NMM in historical models just isn't really a thing. Well, I mean, there's not a lot. Really, it's that with metallics, you don't have to sell the shiny. It's there. But you have to work around it if it's going to be like I said, if it's a competition online that uses photographs, you highlight and shade them the same. But because when I do shaded metallics, I'm going to do the same kind of highlighting that I do on NMM. I would say that on bigger models, as you guys know, I prefer TMM like busts, generally. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I say it's not really a bias anymore, Mini Monster. Like, it depends. Like, if you're entering your local game stores competition and you know the guys there would be blown out of the water by NMM, but they maybe won't be so impressed by TMM, then you do NMM. But it really comes down to what you want to do. In most competitions, like Nova Open or Adepticons, various Adepticon competitions, ReaperCon, Master Series Open, it doesn't matter. All we're looking for is that whatever you do it to a good level. That's why I say that in the end, it could be play to your strengths, because I find that a lot of judges are no longer biased either way. If it's a good paint job, it's a good paint job. That said, even a judge who's biased can be blown away by a great example of the opposite technique. So again, then it kind of depends. But is it a local competition or is it... No, I don't actually, Durham. Never. I use regular paints to shade with. Because when you see metallics, when metallics are in front of you and you look at the shadows, like a shaded area is not like necessarily reflective. Like, it depends, right? Sometimes what Kirill does, I like Kirill's technique. He mixes normal paints and he uses normal paints to... is it time to get out Mr. Grumpy again? It is. We've been distracted. Hold on. Mr. Grumpy's making a reappearance. He's my best example. All right. Let's get Grumpy and let's get Templar. They are polar opposites in the execution. First, Grumpy. Move over, Monique. We have something grumpier. All right, so Mr. Grumpy is done in metallics. ReaperCon. Okay. ReaperCon, either. We are very open-minded judges. Most of us have actually executed high-level paint jobs with both Mini Monster. So you can do either. So this is Mr. Grumpy. He has an awesome breastplate done in... he's actually my class model from Kirill's seminar. So I have done metallic paint on him. Now, Kirill does a technique where the only time that you don't have a sheen, see I don't have a sheen right here, is if you want to suggest rust and corrosion. If you want to suggest like dirt and getting like in the oils, like armor is oiled, right, to keep it from rusting. If you want to suggest like just dirt buildup and stuff, you still have that sheen. And what Kirill does to that is he works with regular colored paint, but he mixes a little bit of gloss sealer and a little bit of metallic paint into those. So he gets a little bit of a sheen, just not as shiny as it is up here, and not as shiny as it is on the scratches. But here, where I wanted like definite corrosion in the armor, notice how it's just regular paint. Because rust, and also over here with the rust in this crack, see how it's not shiny? And the rust there is not shiny. So when you are using high-level TMM, you are really focused on where's my shiny, how shiny is it, and where is it not shiny. I will always use regular paint to shade my NMM. Always. Because there are lots of times in shadows where I don't want it shiny. So with shaded metallics, that's what you're looking at. Like, and you're really, for me, I'm always shading with non-metallic paints, and I may put a glaze of gloss or something over the top, or a glaze of metallic over the top to make it all integrate in the end. But some of these areas, you can even see it. That area is less shiny than it is up here. I've gone less shiny with this dent because there's a rust and corrosion, so yeah, Michael Proctor is the one. I don't know how much he's teaching. He runs the Master Series Open now, and that takes up a lot of time and energy. But anyway, so compare that to Templar, and the differences are immediately apparent. With NMM, precision is king. With the metallics, you can't control your light source. Like, it's going to be shiny, and sometimes it's going to hit in places that you wish it wouldn't. From like here, he's kind of pointed where the light is hitting him underneath instead of up top. Now, if he was standing up, you'd see the light on top. But she's so much more precise, and that's precisely why I went with NMM on her. is because I wanted to bring out all these beautiful little details that are sculpted on. Well, they do, Basement. That's the point. You can make it look amazing no matter what. But I usually will pick a project. Like, I find true metallics work better on big open areas without a lot of sculpted detail. And the lion has so much fine sculpted detail that to do metallics on this would have probably, I wouldn't say wreck it, but it just wouldn't be nearly as good. You'd have to work a lot harder to get really crisp. Like, maybe I should just paint another one, really, in true metallics, and you guys can see. Also, I wouldn't be able to do the reflective effect. Like, I wouldn't be able, if I had done her in metallics, I would have been able to maybe introduce some color here, but you would not get the Sky Earth. It's Sky Earth in metallics, yeah. It depends on you precisely controlling reflection and light. So to get the Sky Earth effect, I don't think it's possible in metallics. You can make a shot at it, and if your lighting in the room is correct, it might look right, but I don't think it really will transmit that precise effect. Okay. Right, exactly. So if you want Michael to talk about shaded metallics, just catch him when he's on Artist Row and sitting down. Yeah. But in general, Mini Monster, if I'm going to do metallics, it's going to be on a big bust like this. He's really large. And it's going to be on areas where there's a lot of stuff that I can do. My other one that I did shaded metallics on is Soldier 76 from Overwatch, and he's a 12-inch tall statue. So, and he's got shaded metallics like these. I'm going to put Grumpy back. One sec. There. Excellent. Excellent, excellent. So the answer is, either technique can be amazing. Either technique can win you competitions. The question is, which can you do to a higher level? And do you want to use this competition as an excuse to push yourself and get feedback if it isn't your best technique? If you're just starting to try NMM, or you're just starting to try True Metallics. But remember also, for ReaperCon, you can enter more than one model in each category. So like in painters, you could paint up something with NMM and you could paint up something with True Metallics, and enter both and get feedback on both. That is the great thing about MSP. Even if the judges, for one thing, the judges are going to give you information by choosing to judge one or the other. And then you can ask them, well, why did you like my NMM better? Or why did you like my True Metallics better? Now, you may run into something where if a judge is very, very good at a given technique and you choose to do that technique, you may get a hard judge on that one. Because they're going to probably, if it's their thing, they're going to judge you, more effectively because they really get that technique. But that's why also we have a team of judges. Like we do 3 judges that go around together and you get the averaged score. So one hard judge cannot throw it off, or one biased judge cannot throw it off. And if there is a biased judge, it's likely to be over... we're likely to not have a biased judge because we honestly work hard to make sure our judges are good judges. But even if we did, like that judge, if he or she was really off compared to his teammates' scores, like they get pretty much called in and asked why they scored so differently. And they have to come to an agreement with their teammates. So there's more going on behind the judging scene than you guys think there is. Going back to my highlighting now. So yeah, the first question. Oh yeah, next 2 weeks, I would imagine. Yeah, everybody underestimated Mr. Grumpy because the other model that I painted that entered that year was Sacrifice, and she was at that time the best thing I'd ever done. And she was also metallics, actually. Weirdly, because I couldn't make the Damascus blade work nearly as well with NMM, and I would have thought that NMM was the answer for Damascus, but it's not. It was so much easier to do it in metallics. It was still difficult. I still had to paint it 3 times, but... So yeah, both of the busts that I painted, that was 2 years ago, because we didn't have a competition anything last year, so I didn't paint any competition models. But this year, obviously, Templar is she's my main competition piece, and she is NMM. NMM to the max. NMM upgraded times 100. Really difficult NMM. So after her, maybe I'll grab something and decide to do metallics again. Just for a break. When you've done a ton of NMM, it is really nice to switch to a metallics project. Because it's fun in a different way. You're still using a lot of the same principles because you're still thinking about where is light falling and making sure that you have, everything shaded and highlighted accordingly. And with metallics, I think it's more fun sometimes to do the weathering effects. That's just my personal feeling. I have a lot of fun doing the scratches and dents and micro abrasions, and I don't do nearly as much of that stuff on NMM, not yet. That's probably my next challenge. And actually, I'm looking forward to. I'm sure Kirill covers this stuff because he actually gave me some pointers on it when he was in the U.S. So that's probably my next place is as a painter at my level. I kind of pick and choose what's the next thing I want to work on with a competition piece. Competition pieces for me are an excuse to push myself. Because otherwise there's no reason. I paint to a good level. I don't really need to push myself unless I want to. And I mean, that's true for, I think, all of us really. Unless you're selling. If you're actually making some money off of your painting, then you have an incentive to get better outside of just your own personal wants or competitions. But I think the next things I'm working on probably are NMM with weathering metal and continuing to work on my faces. I like my face for Templar. I think it's a next level face, and it's better than any other one I've ever done. But I'm sure I can get better. So a little bit of edging there, just to bring that plate out. It's kind of under her hair, so it's going to kind of disappear back there, but it's just harder because you have to hit the light right across it, and it just wasn't working. You can get the thing with NMM Valendar is you can nail the pattern much easier than with metallics. But I found that metallics made it easier with highlighting and shading. There are, basic face highlighting is pretty easy to learn and isn't about patience. I guess the question for you, Durham, is, are you having problems with where to put your highlights, or are you just having problems getting the skin smooth, or with eyes? So with eyes, I would say it's patience. Hello, Trouble? Yeah, in another 10 minutes I'll stretch. If I feel like it. I don't know, I skipped stretching yesterday. I just did stretches extra. My back is so much better that although stretching is still good, it's I'm not forced to stretch. So I tend to stretch before my walk after the stream. But probably I'll stretch in 10. Take a little break. Because it's healthy to take a little break. But it's not even an hour. We haven't even been here for an hour, so I usually like to go a little bit over. So there's a little bit of highlighting back there. But yeah, with faces, if you're failing faces, you need to ask yourself why and what and how. Do you think you're failing faces just because you're failing eyes? Or are you failing faces because you're not sure where to highlight? Or are you failing faces because you feel like you need your blending to be smoother? And everybody jokingly says all of the above, but then each of those things is a different thing, and you need a different technique to tackle it. Highlighting is weird. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I think I did a face highlighting thing. I think it was one of the oldest things I did. I think it might even be... No, it's not free. It's, I think it's an old Patreon video. Face highlighting placements. But I could do it again on a 28 because I used a bust. And probably more people need help on 28mm. Maybe I'll do that this month. It's going back and forth for some different topics for $10 this month. So maybe we'll do a little face highlighting thing. And then I definitely have a more complicated face highlighting thing in store one of these months, probably later this summer. Maybe I'll do it next month. There we go. So I put a little glaze over everything. Now we've got all of these plates up on top of the shield, looking nice. Working with the back, you want to make sure your highlights kind of line up, because wherever the light is hitting on the front, it's going to be hitting over on this angle too. But that's not all, and it's specific parts of the cheeks. Don't forget the jawline, Chibi. I know you paint a lot of chibis and they don't have jawlines. That's the thing. That's a weakness. You always get, it's like here, there. Okay, so shadow under the cheekbone, but the jawline has a highlight. Never forget that. Also, it's like, everybody says that, like forehead, cheeks, nose, and tip of the chin, but it also is the upper lip. It's a specific part of the cheek. So you get, I mean, yeah, you can say that, you know, so you want to give people a quick guide, but at the same time, then you're missing stuff, and then they wonder why, you know, like, because you do need this highlight, you know, you do need that highlight. You do, very specifically, it's not just the tip of the chin, because you have a shadow here. Yeah. It's a little more complicated. Like, that's a good basic guideline. It's forehead, cheeks, nose, chin. But if you just go down to chin, you lose the entire bottom half of the face, except for that. And that tends to, it's how painters tend to begin, but it works on chibis, as you can see. Absolutely works on chibis. So if you're doing chibis, you don't have to worry about the jawline, although I still did just a little. You can see that I actually did bring it up just a tad to give her a jawline, even though she didn't. Not so much on this side, because we got a deep shadow here. Shading on faces, I mean, you can see it. You can see what I did. She's got a very sharp indent here. Most models don't. But you got shade. Yeah, shade. You generally want a shadow under the nose. You want shadow under there. You want shadow under there. I mean, with shading, you've got to look at your own face in the mirror, right? And it's like, let's see where the light falls on your face. Like, you can see on my face, obviously I've got shadows here. Obviously I've got a shadow here. Like, you know, obviously I've got a shadow here. And I've got a shadow here. So, and then if you turn the head, I have a shadow here. But there's also color things going on. So start with just your basic. I would honestly, like, maybe get just like a really simple bust and just lay in a highlight shadow, you know, just lay in kind of a pattern, like paint it almost in black and white, just to like give yourself a sense of light and dark. Put it under a light. Like if I put her under a light source, although it's hard now that I've suggested the light source, but if I had her under a sharp light source, you'd be able to see exactly where. Like hold a little light above her, or hold her up to your overhead light, and see where your shadows fall. Yeah, I know you're trying to be helpful, Chibi. Totally. But I also didn't want him to, like, you know, it's like you need to pretty much have like just at least a little bit to show, you know, well, just look at this. I mean, and she's, like I said, she's not the best example. Ta-da. So where are we highlighting? Forehead. Top of the cheeks, get a higher highlight. There's also a little bit of like hitting that lid under the eyes. The light goes down the nose, but you've also got color in here. Pink color, right? That's why I say it's also about color. Top of the lip, under the nose, you've got a bit of a shadow here, but you also have light falling here. You definitely pick up that line. It's not just the tip of the chin. It's actually the entirety of the chin. It's a flat plane with a top. And this is where studying shapes and breaking the face down into shapes is important. Then when you look here, again, you've got your brightest highlight here. You have definitely a shadow here. You have a little bit of a highlight. It's not as high as it is up here, but a little bit of a highlight on the jawline. For shadows, you have beneath the brow. You've got a little bit of shadow. See, it's all like gradients. This is the problem. Because you don't put as dark of a shadow here as you put here. or you put here. You don't put as dark of a shadow in the jaw or on the cheekbone as you do under the nose. A lot of people forget this dark little shadow under the mouth. A lot of times you can't really hit that very well on a 28, but a lot of times you actually can. So it depends on your brush control then, right? So is that a little bit more clear? You should be able to look, if you've got like Kirill's book, or you've got any, like, or get online, get on Putty and Paint, although a lot of those will be done with specialized lighting effects or stuff like that. So you got to keep an eye out for that. It's best if you find examples that are straight up functional light. Yeah. But there's a lot of nuance to faces, to painting them well. Like, Chibi is right on the basics: forehead, nose, cheekbones, chin. But then I started out highlighting like that. And the reason that I stepped in there is because I started out highlighting like that, and my faces always looked wrong. And they looked wrong because I wasn't hitting the upper lip, and also I just wasn't like hitting some areas here. And I tended to highlight like the whole cheek the same, like, and then just put a dark shadow. I always did get the jawline, so I had that, but I wasn't highlighting the upper lip. And until that clicked on me. Actually, I was watching a movie at the time, and I just noticed how the light was falling on an actress's face, and I was like, it clicked. I was like, oh crap, that's what I'm not doing. So yeah, the upper lip's the area between the nose and the upper lip is pretty important to get realistic looking faces. But like, you can see that I'm doing kind of a more heavily shaded effect on this side because I've blocked everything in. So when you're doing a lighting effect, you know, because we're doing kind of a lighting effect that's kind of angled, then all of that kind of goes off the table anyway. Like, you have to modify. But it's good to understand the basics straight up first. That's why I tend to like very simple lighting schemes for models like Templar that have an awful lot going on otherwise. I don't want to add to it by giving a weird light sourcing. So, and I think almost all the concept art that I've seen of, like, the two other paint jobs on Templar that are on the box art, both of them are using a very straightforward facial lighting scheme because everything else on the model is there's so much detail. So, but yeah, I mean, faces are almost like, if it sticks out, highlight it. It almost is that simple, almost. It's just like different gradations of highlighting. All right, where was I? I got distracted. It's a little bit of a squirrel day, I guess. Just because people are asking really good questions and bringing up really good topics. I'm sure that Kirill goes over this in his book. I'm sure that there are lots of tutorials. I mean, we've talked about faces before on this stream. It's just I can't remember what would be the best example. So a little bit of under reflection here. See that little bit of light that I'm picking up? And I'm not going up to white down there. I'm just using this, my paler yellow to get that bounce light. And if I was being really realistic, I could introduce color into that. A little bit of color shift to reflect the surroundings. And I can't just do it on the inside edge. I also have to do it on this flat edge. So we need to bring it up down here. You can see that there is a highlight here. So I'm going to bring it up. Mostly toward the bottom. That's where light would reflect. A little bit of light, just a little bit. You need to catch that light down there to make it look reflective. So there's two qualities of metallics, right? Shiny and reflective. And that's what we're doing when we're doing the highlights on the undersides of things. We're doing the reflection. Those two things together make your animem work. If you have one without the other, it won't look quite right. Yes, brush control comes from practice. Targeted practice will get you brush control. I'm going to do a stretch real quick. Targeted practice will get you your brush control up faster. And by targeted practice, I mean doing things like, you know, setting out to line a model that has a lot of lining, and to focus on improving your brush control with that exercise. My paper keeps tilting. I'm tilting. No reason to tilt. There we go. So like I always recommend that people like line, like if you have like a fire giant with triangular overlapping armor plates, or you've got like a dragon with scales, and you know, all these kind of things can be good for building your brush control. I have a video on that also. Alrighty. It is time to stretch. If you have been standing, sitting, or, you know, lying down for more than an hour, please join us in a stretch. A simple, simple stretch. Oh, I was thinking of tilt like in video games. Yes, that sounds great. Stretch your way to the kitchen, Quindy. I wish I could have more caffeine today, but yesterday was my heavy caffeine day. So now I can have just a tiny bit of caffeine, a little bit of tea this afternoon. That's it. I am going to do my floor exercise real quick, and then we'll come back and we'll finish this NMM. Alrighty. Yay. Alrighty, righty. We are back. And let us continue. But yeah, so NMM and things and stuff. But yeah, as far as entering Master Series Open goes, it is like a very accessible competition. You shouldn't, there's really no reason to try to like game the system or game the judges. For one thing, you don't know which judging team you're going to get in advance. You will never know. And so trying to play to the judges doesn't work like it does at some other competitions where you might know who is judging it in advance. My best advice is to paint something you love, a model that doesn't have a lot of flaws on it, so that you don't end up fighting with the model in addition to fighting with your paint job. So choose your model wisely, and paint it to the best of your ability. If you can, push yourself a little bit on something, but definitely also embrace your strengths. If you're really good at one aspect of painting, if you're really good at metallics, do metallics. People have brought me chocolate before, but now my diet is so wonky that food bribes don't work for me at ReaperCon anymore. Although good dark chocolate, can sometimes work to bribe an Ann. Though it certainly doesn't help my waistline, my continuing war with my waistline, to keep my waistline manageable. It'll probably be just like before we had our last vacation. I lost weight again right before we went to Monterey, and then I came back 2 pounds heavier. It's all water, but, it takes time to shed it anyway. Mini Monster, yeah, freehand is just like any technique. So if you do freehand, make sure it's good freehand. It's just like metallics or NMM or anything. It doesn't necessarily get you... It won't get you extra points if it's not good. How about that? Like, there are competitions where people are wowed by freehand, and it will get you extra points, quote unquote. I use extra points with quotes around it. There has been times in the past of mini painting competitions where definitely that is a thing, but it's not a thing if you're not good at it. So if you do freehand and it just looks simplistic, or it doesn't look as good as you wanted it to look, or you're not sure if it's distracting from the model, then it might be better just not to do it. Unless it's terrible, it won't drop you points, but it might not add points. But yeah, freehand is a technique. It is part of painting. Any technique you use on your model is going to be taken into account, and it's going to be assessed as to how well you did it. Like that's how MSP Open works. Is you give us a selection of models, say in the painters category. So when you enter it in painters, you're saying, I want the paint job judged. I didn't do any sculpting on this, or if I did do sculpting on it, I don't want the sculpting judged, just judge the paint job. And so painters is all about that. And so whatever technique you use, shaded metallics, regular, NMM, freehand, lighting effects, we're going to judge that. We're going to judge it as to how well you executed it. Not in comparing it to anybody else, but in comparing it to a hypothetical standard of how well you could have performed it. So if you do shaded metallics and we think you did them like you knocked it out of the park, then you get scored very high on that aspect. But if your faces suck, you'll drop, stuff like that. So that's why I say play to your strengths. But yeah. Yeah, right. Caporia wins because of the food. Sure. Caporia wins because she loves to paint and she paints her butt off. Let's be fair. I know you're joking, Shadow Raven. Still funny. Also, she's adorable. And wicked. I like wicked women. So there we go. All right, so we've got that. We've got all that. Gold done. I did think I might put some here. We've got a little snap there. Yes, Caporia is concentrated awesome. But yeah, any technique you do, no matter what technique it is, the judges will look at it, kind of assess how well you executed on it, and score it appropriately. Like, we will usually, at first, to get your base placement, and the only person I can speak to here really is myself, because other judges may do this differently. But what I'm first looking at is technique. Like, I'm looking at the basic technique to kind of place you as a painter, see what you're doing well, how, are you blending, or I'm assessing your style. Are you blending, or are you trying to do a more stylistic take on the model? How well have you executed your base techniques? Before I even look at your freehand, I'm going to be looking at other stuff, like your highlighting and shading, your base techniques. And then I'm going to work my way up and kind of say, okay, well, this lighting effect is cool, but the face isn't so cool. I'm just going to kind of break it down. I'm going to look at your model in the whole too. I'm going to just kind of, when I first walk up to it, I'm just going to kind of look at it, listen to my gut, and think about like tentatively putting you on a shelf. And then I'm going to focus in on your techniques a lot finer and see if looking closer at the model changes my mind and that's actually better than I thought. Or I'm going to notice flaws and, think about keeping you on my initial assessment shelf. I seldom drop a model. My gut is usually good when I walk up to the model, but there can be subtleties to the model that I only notice after I pick it up and really start looking at it that can raise you. Like, that's how I attack it. But every judge is different. That's fine. Like, Jessica Bathory brought her, cel-shaded and cross-hatched comic book pieces and got gold, Basement Forge. It's not like you have to blend. If you don't have a standard technique, most judges at Reaper are going to try to be open-minded about it, and they're going to try to assess, what you're trying to do, and they're going to assess how successful you are at what you're trying to do. I'm a technique whore. I'll just be straight up about it. I believe that mastery of technique is the best thing the best investment you can make in your artistic career, because it gives you the tools to do anything you want at all. So the first thing I look for is technique. But if you're using different techniques like Jessica does, and you're doing it well, I'm going to give you cred for that, even if you don't blend a single area on the model. If you're going with a different way of highlighting and shading and you're doing it well and like it's obvious, like, you know, it's giving you a specific style, then I'm not going to downgrade you on that. I mean, but it's still a good point though, Basement. If you're using a non-standard technique, would I grade you down if you're not blending? No, I wouldn't. But though it has to be evident what your technique is. Like, you know, if you're cross-hatching part of the model, but then you're trying to blend on another part of the model, then I'm going to be like, what are you going for here? And again, the only person really I can speak to is myself. If I am judging, this is the way I tend to tackle it. But every judge tackles it a little bit different. It's a very hard job to put these models on shelves. Like, to figure out in your head, you know, is this a bronze? Is this silver? The bronze-silver demarcation is probably the hardest. Although silver-gold can be hard, too. But it is very hard sometimes to figure out if a model is like a low silver or a high bronze, or a high silver or a low gold. Because there are different... It's not just straight-up gold. We've got levels. Because it's a numerical score. So, like, even if you get silver over several years, ask if you were a high silver or a low silver, or if you were just in the middle. Because you know, if you got a low silver the year before, and then this year you get silver and you feel really bummed out, but then you're able to ask the judges and they're like, you're a really high silver, you just need to keep working and you can get to gold. That can really keep you going. And if you drop, then there's got to be a reason for it. So then ask questions. But sometimes that's just the different judges. Like, if you get a different judging team one year and they're a little bit harder or a little bit softer, then, you know, that can play in. We try very hard to keep everybody on the same page, but the fact is it's always individuals. So the best you can do in any competition is not focus on, like, the prize, but focus on you enjoying painting this thing and really producing something you're proud of. Like, even if your NMM doesn't work great, the fact that you tried it and you actually are pretty happy with it, even though you know it could be better, like, that's worth it. That's why I paint these days. Like, when I entered Crystal Brush 2 years ago, the last Crystal Brush, I knew I wasn't going to win. Like, and what it was about for me was, one, producing a piece that I really loved, that I felt that I'd exceeded my previous level on, and two, producing a piece that would, you know, that essentially other painters, my peers, could look at and say, wow, that's awesome. Like, those were my two motivations. That was worth more to me than the judging putting me up and giving me a trophy. So it's good. I think it's a healthy mindset to do it for its own rewards, for just the pleasure that you take in producing a model that you really like. I think that's the best motivation. And everything else should just go out the window, and you should just paint to the best of your ability and do the best you can. And I mean, competition painting is about tweaking. It's about, like, going back and saying, you know what, I could do a little extra work on that red. You know what, I can make that NMM a little bit better. You know what, her face looks kind of dull now. I probably need more highlights on it. And doing that work. Like, it really is about it. I mean, we were joking yesterday about the whole, you know, a project is never finished, just abandoned. And in general, I don't believe that. But I do think that for a very high level model that you're pushing yourself on, it feels that way after a while, because you're going back and you're tweaking and you're tweaking and you're trying to improve and you're trying to improve. And it's the nature of competition painting. It's the nature of getting better. And it sounds tiresome to some people. To me, it's really enjoyable. Just blending in this a little bit. I wanted more of a highlight here, more of a consistent highlight. But yeah, I like the tweaking because with every tweak, I get a little bit better. I like the model a little bit more. But there's definitely a place where I just go, okay, this is it. This is diminishing returns. I talked about this a couple days ago. There's a point where every change you make is just like an infinitesimal improvement, and then it's just like, okay, that's done. There's no more big work I can do on this model. Then you're just tweaking, and you might tweak it the wrong way. Every entry does not get a medal, Durham. We have certificates, and so certificates are different than bronze, silver, gold, and then there are also manufacturer awards. It is a numerical score. It's scored on Everybody will give it like a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. Am I right? My 0 is nothing, 1 is certificate, 2 is bronze, 3 is silver, 4 is gold. And each judge will. And there's a scale as far as the grading. When the competition is done, you go to the table that you entered your model at, and you ask to see your scores, and you ask who judged you. And they will have that information. They will show you your scores, and then they will tell you which judges to go to. And you go into the competition room, and you ask, you find the judges, you wait respectfully till they're done with whoever they're with, and then you ask them to give you feedback on your model, and you take them over and tell them which one it was. So you will get to see it, and you get both. Some people only want to get the numbers and don't want to talk to the judges. But I think that, this may be the only painting competition in the world where you have the option of going up and talking to the judges with your model, seeing your scores, having this kind of interaction. I think it's foolish not to take advantage of it. But some people just want to see how they scored, and they don't want to talk to, they're maybe afraid to talk to the judges about it, or they're shy, and that's cool. I mean, if you really, but if you want to get better, all of our judges are really friendly, and we're not going to knock you down. We're going to encourage you. We want you to come back next year with an even cooler model. That's our goal. A 0, there have been zeros at past open competitions. I don't think there's ever been one at a ReaperCon, because it's very much put to you at the beginning. As a judge, we all have a kind of a meeting before the competition. But when you give someone a 0 in open system, you are telling them to just stop hobbying. You are saying, give up on the hobby, this is shit. And none of us, there's not a judging team in the history of the world that judges open with any sense of anything. It would have to be so bad. I just can't. I actually gave somebody a 0 at a competition once, just so you guys know. It does happen. And afterwards, I was called into the judging room and asked to explain myself after I gave that 0. I stood by my guns, but they did not like it. Now, I used to be a very harsh judge also, and I'm not anymore. I missed a mold line here, guys. So I'm going to take this right off while we're talking. It's annoying me and keeping me from highlighting this area. So I'm taking my little knife and nipping it off. And I think I've got one a little bit there. I don't know. There is room for a 0, but it really is when you're giving someone who enters a competition a 0, you're saying there is nothing of worth in their paint job. And it has to be pretty bad. But like I said, I have done it. I have given someone a 0 in a past competition. It actually wasn't Reaper. It was previously in my judging career. All right, there we go. Sorry, I was really annoyed at that. That will drop you scores, Durham, in competition. If not so much little stuff, if there's a tiny mold line you missed, then we're just going to be kind of disappointed. But the first rule of painting for competition is to prep well. Because preparation and cleaning, is 10% of your score. In open system. And in the early days of Reaper, we did actually drop somebody an entire metal level because there was a big mold line right across the top of the head. Paint job was great, dropped it. It was a silver and it dropped to a bronze. So I don't care. I'm totally, as you guys can tell from my streaming, I'm totally lax on mold lines also. I miss them all the time. I don't really care a lot of the time unless they're really annoying me. But on competition models, I spend the time. I fill, I green work, I prep. Because you know what? If you're painting something for competition and you're going to be spending so many hours on that model, you better care enough to take that mold line off, right? Taking that mold line off is going to take you 5 or 10 minutes at the worst. You're going to be spending hours on this model to make it look good. So you should care that 5 or 10 minutes. Oh, sure, splintered brush. Now I'm going to I gotta do a little bit of highlight and shading on the top here of the sword. A lot of the time the feedback you get is higher highlights, deeper shadows. Yep. Yeah, and I did a video on that too. Right. Yeah, exactly, Shadow Raven, which is why zeros are like a far-flung like rarity. I think any good judge, and the purpose of the open system is to give feedback and encouragement. Yep, have fun, Mini Monster. And come back with questions all the time. I mean, I don't run the competition anymore, but I did for years, and I still judge it when Michael lets me. So, I can answer your questions, and kind of give you an eyeball into strategy and, just how we judge. I always like to talk to people who are interested in competition painting because, I love competition painting. So, never be afraid to come back and ask. I don't know, the things I'm about to go into, Basement Forge. That's my challenge every month after over 2 years of doing Patreon is what haven't I done a video on yet? Yeah, War Shadow. It's just, it's making time, right? I run into that all the time where an entire week will go by and I will hardly work on my competition entry or my painting projects. But really what I find is it's just being mindful of it. If I want to get paint on stuff, I have to sit myself down and say, we're going to paint tonight. We're not going to get distracted by, playing Borderlands with David. Or we're going to say, okay, honey, we can play Borderlands for an hour, but then I'm going to paint. Or I want to paint for an hour before we play Borderlands, right? You have to consciously, we choose how to spend our time. We have choices every day. I find that when I want to, I can find the time. But I sometimes have to find the time. I really think there isn't a fail because you learn from everything you do. But yeah, I mean, practice is progress. So totally. And yeah, you won't always get it the right time, the first time, absolutely. It's all that's why I say you should paint for yourself. You shouldn't necessarily, even if you like to paint for competition, you should paint to please yourself. And to progress in a way that makes you happy. And that should be your first goal. Because then, it's just like we talked about with writing the other day. It's at least then you have the work. You have the model that you painted that you're really happy with. So even if it doesn't win, or it doesn't do as well as you want it to do, you're still happy with the progress that you made and the product of your work. No, I didn't, Mad Zeke. David's more into Borderlands than I am. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Bills come first, always. Living your life has to come first. You should never put aside that sort of thing. Alright, just doing a little bit of... I'm leaving some shadows on top of this. Once again, I won't darken them down a lot. I'm using just my russet brown as my darkest shadow. Because I want... This is facing upwards, so I want most of the face of this to be light. But I also need to I also need to suggest details, so I do need to put some shadow in there. I just won't do quite as much. Oh, is it? Yeah, I mean, we just started the Psycho Creek one, DLC. I don't know. If I don't have a gun I like in Borderlands, then I hate playing it. Yeah, sorry. I had tuned it out, so we have trash sounds in the background. Hopefully they are leaving now. Yeah, bottom line though, guys, with painting for competition, it's the same reason to paint anything. It's paint what you love. Paint what you love to a level that makes you happy. That said, you know, competitions are a great opportunity to push yourself if you've been looking for an excuse and you just normally don't have the energy for it. So if you want to try a new technique, little skull. Yeah, they're being loud out there. I keep hoping that they'll be done soon. This is the big dumpsters that they do, and we only have like 2, I think, so. Jeez. Now I'm noticing it, but at this point, if I get up and close the window, it's like a moot point because it's already been loud, and it's done now, probably. Yeah, it isn't terribly loud, which is why I didn't, like... Didn't check it right away. There we go. Just kind of getting a little bit of this, like... ironed out. Little skull, little wings. Oh, yeah, it's, well... I mean, what's rejection, though? Like, with the Master Series, you're going to get a score. So, like, I guess there's really, unless everybody gives you a 0, which is highly unlikely, it's not very likely rejection will be a thing. Like, we're not going to toss it out a window. It's not like when you're submitting for short stories where you actually get a rejection letter. Here you get, like, a letter, a comment, a conversation of, you know, what was really good on your mini and what could you improve. And the best way to improve is to just kind of, like, accept that stuff. Like, there's always going to be ways to improve. So it is hard to take criticism. I will absolutely agree. I've had to, like, fight to make myself accept criticism gracefully over the years, and I still sometimes catch myself grumbling a little. So I do get it. Yep. Yeah, I got past it in my writing pretty quick, so I've just got to get past it a little bit in my painting. Just because it's not, like, with writing, it's just not professional. Like, that attitude, the attitude that the book is your baby, it's just not. So it doesn't serve you at all. I don't think it really serves you in miniatures either. Like, you should definitely be invested in the project and want it to look good. But you shouldn't get all helicopter parent on it. Yes, Zen is absolutely right. Part of the problem is that people don't know how to critique well, and so it can feel really emotionally loaded. I did make an effort to learn to critique I've been in enough management positions to try to be better at it. Plus, giving feedback after competitions is, because like you say, people put a lot of work into it. They care about it. And so it can get very sensitive when you're like tackling like what they could do better. Right. Well, there's different styles, right? It's just like management styles. Is some people react well to harsh criticism and some people don't. And some painters seem to think it's like okay to do that sort of thing, like that people need you to be hard on them. I will ask you, or you should tell me when you come up to me for feedback, do you want hard mode or do you want easy mode? And if you ask for hard mode, I'm going to be extremely honest with you, and I'm not going to go Gordon Ramsay on you, but I am going to be straight up about your faults, right? And I am going to like go a little bit more like you could push yourself by doing X, Y. Whereas if you want real lightweight, then I'm probably going to pick something that you do well and something that you could improve on, and I'm going to be pretty lightweight about it. So if you're really trying to improve, you're going to get a lot more out of hard mode than out of easy mode. But if you really are just kind of looking for a direction and you don't want a lot of hardcore criticism, easy mode can also help you. It just won't help you quite as much. Yeah, and some people are like that, Dogfather. Some people would much more prefer an honest critique that's like, give it to me straight. But with people who are new to competition, or who are really sensitive to criticism, because sometimes you are, like if you just had a really critical family or parent growing up, you could be very, very sensitive to it. So sometimes the easy mode is okay. Yeah, I mean, that's what I strive for in my hard mode. I don't think anybody in the basic Reaper team, I don't think anybody is like gonna hardcore. I mean, it also depends on how well you take criticism, right? Like I have had people at competitions who just are like, who have every excuse in the world. You bring up something that their model maybe was weak on for you, and they're like, but. You're just not getting it, they say. And then you're just done. Like, you can't have that conversation anymore. So both the receiver and the giver of the constructive criticism need to be open. Sometimes you just get that person and you can't help them because they're just not open to actually, like, receiving your criticism. So nobody rages at ReaperCon. I've never heard a judge go off on anybody in that room, and it's a relatively smallish room. You'd hear it. Yeah, totally, Carrie Michael. And, some of us are going to be able to help you. Like, some judges may look at your work and go, this is really good. You should just keep working on all of this. And some judges are going to have specific things for you to work on. I try to always break it down and focus on something, some technique that you can focus on improving, so it gives you a target to hit. Because I think that's a little bit more helpful sometimes than saying, yeah, just keep working on your blending. Although sometimes that really is it. All right, I think now I just need to get a little bit there, a little bit there. And I think we're pretty much done with our stream today. I did want to go a little bit over because I know I started at 11:40 because I had a late wake up today. And I still have to squeeze in all of my stuff in the morning. Now we have, for the most part, finished this model. I'm just going to add a little bit of a highlight here. What we did today, gosh, we talked about so many awesome things today. We talked about competition painting, talked about NMM versus TMM, true metallics versus non-metallic metals for competition painting. We had a lot of competition talk today. I like it. It's good. I enjoy it. And then we worked on NMM on the gold. to get Monique finished. And she pretty much is. I'm just getting a little bit of highlighting down on the underside of the sword just to bring up a little bit. On Monday, we've got Wyvern Day. And next week on... Actually, it'll be next Monday. The following Monday, we'll start a new model in Monique's slot. Oh, I should show you guys too. Yep, she's pretty much done. We have a Monique. Yeah, so next Monday, because we are on a 6-day offset, and today is Friday. 1 second, I will get out the new mini. We will be working on, in place of Monique, and I've been waiting to do this one, this guy! Because he's really cool, and kind of evil. I want to do somebody evil. So we're working on Crimson Herald. A Bobby sculpt. Because I love his tentacles. This is going to be fun. And he's got a book, too. So yeah, I really like him, and I want to work on him next. So that will be our next model. I have to email John and Justin. Yeah, and I may use the random color scheme generator to come up with a color scheme for him. My random color scheme generator that I made for the Patreon. Although I want to update it. I want to update it a little. But yes. So that is who is taking over from Monique. So we'll have an evil slot now. We have a villain slot, essentially, in our week. I wanted to do that. So yeah. Yes, go eat. Shadow Raven is already eating, probably. Or you're not. Shadow Raven, you're late on lunch. I'm going to go take a walk and then do my lunch. But anyway, so there we go, guys. Thank you very much for showing up. This is the model we'll start next week. 8 days from now. Or 8 days from 8, 9, 10. I don't know. Not this coming Monday, but the following Monday. That. Yes, thanks, Quindy. And Reaperland later today. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. I'm going to try to have a fantastic weekend. And yeah, come back on Monday for Wyvern Day, all right? We'll see you guys around. You all have a wonderful day.